What's that?
I want to go into a group home.
Group home?
Yeah.
Sorry. Say that again.
I want to go into a group home.
Oh, you want to go to a group home?
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, I guess, I think there are some certain group homes where they do encourage independent living. I know, certainly better than the institutions that they used to throw,
Oh
our,
yeah.
our autistic, ancestral kin in, when, disabled kin in general, so I know that's one thing that, organizations like the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network have pushed for, where, and there are those cases where there are those group homes that allow folks to live, independently together. So
Right.
Yeah,
it is a
my thing
resource
is
that
too,
should be
is
looked into
I
more.
love that. I'm sorry. I was gonna say I love to encourage people with autism, no matter what spectrum it is, I would love for them to be able to live independently. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you'll find a lot of, you'll find a lot of resistance, especially in the old school, professionals, the kind of people that got credit for, you know, breaking down the old refrigerator mom model, but their methods were that much less savage, you know. But you would see community, independent living. They would say things like independent living my foot, based on more the medical model where the person and their condition is the problem as opposed to the barriers they face. So, unfortunately, that medical model where, shut up, you're the problem, we're trying to help you, as opposed to, hey, you face barriers, if we're to help you overcome these barriers. The former seems to be much more prevalent than the latter. And, unfortunately, when you have that mentality, a conversation about a group of people without them and make decisions and research about them creates low expectations. So, Bob, I'm glad you mentioned that you went to CHOP too, because when I was about 2 years old, my parents took me to CHOP, and that pencil neck geek told my parents that I would make it past kindergarten. My grandfather said, that man's full of shit. And clearly, a jeweler from Philadelphia knew better than some pencil neck geek from CHOP who studied us not as equal humans and colleagues that work together, but rather as if, they work for the National Geographic. And unfortunately, that mentality is still the same when you got shows like Love on the Spectrum set up, where, it's clearly about us, but not for us. It's meant to warm the hearts of neurotypical people so that they can, pardon my language, but metaphorically jerk off to the idea that they're a good person because their heart's warmed, But yeah,
I understand what you're saying from that point of view. And it does suck to see it that way sometimes, and what their main motive is. But I try to think of it as a way to encourage the idea that there is hope out there for people with autism, that there is love, that there is something that can happen, and they can inspire from it. You know what I mean? But I get what you mean by the business model of it. And
yeah.
Can I say something for that too?
Yes.
Because Bob's dad and I just remembered about the fact that when he was in high school, there was a school psychologist who said he would never go to college. We never thought of that way. It was his choice. He wanted to go, and we're like, yeah, you go. And you go wherever you suit you best. But that's happens. There are people who are supposed to be people of that, who have that kind of background or doctorate, whatever, who come up with things sometimes that just really are not what should happen. They just should be encouraged for everything that you want to do.
Right. Yeah, I remember that so clearly. It was like, I told him about, I want to live away at school, and I still have that document just of him writing down, this person doesn't seem, it might seem unrealistic. And I remember mom, I remember you and dad saying, don't listen to this, you got to do what you need to do, what makes you feel happy. And that's what I did. I proved him wrong.
Yes, you did. And that's what I think people need to do. It can't be it's not always one way or the other. I mean, it's individualized, and whatever you feel is best for you is what it should be.
Right. And also wanted to point out also that when I was, the thing is like, what you said about earlier, where, there's people out there saying, oh, when others who are not autistic would say, oh, you're not the face of autism, like you're not this type of autism. Well, the thing is, I agree. If you've seen one person with autism, you've seen one person with autism. It's so diverse on that spectrum, in whether it be even interests, characteristics,
That's very true, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is, it's a conversation about us without us. We are guests at most in our own conversation, we serve, in organizations as token board members, which tokenism is merely the illusion of inclusion. Allows organizations to get the credit of including us without actually doing the legwork. So you have an entire, conversation, about us without us, and blind spots. And, when you're not talking to people as equals, then they're lesser. You're either at the table or you're on the menu. And, we're still very much on the menu. And, we're, the institutions, ableist institutions, still savagely feast upon us, and the parents, and
They don't really encourage independence. I mean, they don't encourage results in terms of independence for autistics and actually helping them move up.
Well, they don't encourage, treating us as equals. The people who are going to solve this institutional ableism are not the ones that are currently benefiting from it and complacent with it. And you'll find many of them are resistant because that's their bread and butter, and their good intentions are more important, and are more important than the impact, and out of sight, out of mind. If it ain't a problem for us, it ain't a problem at all. And if you keep mentioning it, guess who's the problem?
That's why I always try to instill in Nikki self-advocation, because if he can advocate for himself and what he can do, what he can't do, I never looked at raising Nikki as somebody different. I just went along with all the things that he could do. And I always tried to focus on his strengths and point, and try to steer him in that direction.
Yes, you always let me do stuff and explore things too.
Yeah,
when he would draw in high school and the teachers would try to take his books away from him, I understood that they didn't.
Said that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember a teacher threw a flip book away one time. That was something else.
That was his strength, and that's what helped him conversate and talk to people and open up. So I didn't like when they tried to stifle his the thing that was a strength of his, and I work in a public school in special ed, and I try to never stifle anything that the kids are a strength of theirs. I try to promote it. I mean, there's a time and place, maybe you don't be doing that in math class. During lunchtime, you could do that. You could do that all you want and take your things around and your drawing and show and talk to people. But, I always try to focus on his strengths and point him in that direction. And, so teach him to self-advocate for himself.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. You're going to have to self-advocate for yourself. And we believe that that's what is going to get you guys where you need to be or want to be. And it has to be what you want. That is unfortunately not, there are those folks who don't advocate for you. And I'm a teacher myself, or about to retire as a teacher. But I've taught many special ed students, and I have never, ever wanted to, squash anything that was important to them. I never did, because that's each child is different. And again, yeah, you guys definitely have to self-advocate.
Well, and it's the funny thing is, obviously my mom was an autism parent too, and pretty, I guess Nick, Bob, and myself, I guess we're considered millennials, and obviously, that boomer generation of parents that raised their kids in hopes that they would advocate for themselves one day. Now you have the next generation of autism parents living in their brainstem due to institutional ableism with the conversation about us without us. And oftentimes, you're going to see, the big, powerful people in the positions are oftentimes autism parents that really don't care about autistic people in general, but only care about their kids. Plenty of people that will gladly crush and run over, adult autistic voices because they care about their own kid. And it's a shame because, too many, people in the autism conversation, autism parents, they're spitting in the faces of, our generation of parents that worked hard so that we could advocate for ourselves. But, in the autism industry, the clients are not autistic adults. The clients are autism parents. So once they kick us out of the system and they say, oh, well, you appear normal enough, you'll be fine, go disappear. Maybe you'll become an inspiration.
And it's a
porn
matter
poster.
to what the parents do that they get the help they need. It's a matter what the parents do to get the help they need. Basically.
Yep. Well, we got to take our seat at the table because right now, because unemployment and high suicide rates hit our community higher, we don't have the money. The autism industry, they're making the bread and butter, and the clients are the ones with the money, the parents. So
money talks, man. I get that. Money talks.
Yeah.
And it enhances the English language for sure. It puts Dale Carnegie's book to shame, if you really think about it.
Oh, How to Win Friends and Influence People?
Yeah.
Oh,
you read that book?
Hell yeah, I have it in my living room. Everybody should read it. I don't care who you are.
No, I always wanted to read it, but I always hear about it. I mean, I'll read it when I get to it. I'm not a big reader of books personally, but I can, if I put my mind to it, I can.
It should be required reading for everybody. If I had federal authority, I would make that. If
are you gonna mandate it?
Yeah, I'm gonna mandate that. I'm gonna be a teacher, be like no different than the parent.
You can do it by
if they eat your vegetables, it's good for you. Absolutely. I mean, everybody's pushing for some big government. Everybody's like, no big government, but my own big government. Big government where because it teaches you to authentically appreciate people and not just use, say one thing and mean another, which is, oftentimes you'll find in these autism organizations, these nonprofits, because
nowadays,
Dr. Ford of the Colors organization, Philly, said it best, those executive directors, those board members, they're politicians. And what needs to happen is the mindset of the clientele or the clientele population needs to change. What's that changes? Because what we say, the things we say, are basic, human rights issues. And when people actually think and either have enough empathy reflex or enough empathy flex to really make that make sense, if we push for that hard enough, it's going to make that change in demand. And, those organizations that, are making a heck of a lot of compensation off of us without us, once that mindset changes in the clientele, those organizations will have to evolve or die. So, I think
sometimes I wonder what the money goes to actually from autism speaks and what they actually do.
You can look at it. You can legitimately look at it. I could tell you exactly, according to the 2019 990 form, I could tell you how much of the 50-something million revenue that Autism Speaks made. I could tell you that the CEO, Angela Geiger, brought in $625,000, and the amount spent on family services grants was less than $200,000. Most of it goes towards research, including a genome project known as Missing. In fact, spelled in a very
So it's not helping out autistics. It's helping out only the the motive of the organization, I guess.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's a conversation about us without us. At that board, with some 20 board members, there's only one board member who's autistic, which is Dr. Stephen M. Shore. And Dr. Stephen M. Shore, while he used to be a hero of mine, considering the fact that he signed off the 100-day kit that basically pushed direct your anger towards the disorder, not your loved one, aka hate the sin, not the sinner for autism, and basically encourage parents to go through the grieving process for an autism diagnosis. Dr. Shore is not an autistic man. He is simply and purely an ableist, good little boy with autism, to paraphrase Marcus Garvey's, critique of Booker T. Washington and Washington's unwillingness to speak out against segregation. So, you find somebody who's complacent with that, and therefore you have the illusion of inclusion that you could always throw in people's faces. The man who made I Am Autism